In this episode of News from Poland Business and Law, we will hear from Radosław Wiśniewski, PhD, advocate and associate in Wardyński & Partners. He advises on real estate transactions and represents clients in judicial and administrative proceedings involving real estate. Radosław will tell you about the government's plans to replace the right of perpetual usufruct of real estate with the right of ownership. Later, we'll hear an update on the Polish economy.
You're watching a program addressed to foreigners acting as board members in Polish companies, foreign investors in Poland, and their foreign advisors. This April, the Polish government has submitted a bill to Parliament that, if passed, will enable perpetual usufructuaries to acquire the ownership of land held in perpetual usufruct. This is meant as a way of purging the Polish legal system of the perpetual usufruct right. But will this new law actually do that? And is the proposed mechanism worth applying? Let's take a closer look at this issue. In general, once an entity invests in real estate in Poland or simply runs a business on Polish land, sooner or later it will have to face the concept of perpetual usufruct. This right was introduced into the Polish legal system during the communist era and is very similar to ground lease in common law countries. It enables the perpetual usufructuary to leasehold the use of publicly owned land for between 40 and 99 years, and allows the usufructuary to own any building on that land. The perpetual usufruct right is hereditary and fully transferable. All these factors make this right almost identical to the full ownership right, so nowadays both these rights have almost the same market value. And yet, the perpetual usufructuary has to pay the landowner an annual fee, and the amount of this fee depends on what the land is used for. The sense of keeping the perpetual usufruct right in the Polish legal system has been contested for years, and in response, successive lawmakers tried to get rid of it. The first phase of this process was carried out in 2019, when the perpetual usufruct right to residential land was automatically converted into ownership. Now, in this new bill, the government plans to give the perpetual usufructuaries of all other types of land a choice whether to acquire its ownership. Perpetual usufructuaries would have 1 year from the date when the new law is enacted to opt for buying the ownership of the land for a price equal to at least 20 times the current percentage rate of the perpetual usufruct fee, multiplied by the current market value of the land. Many conditions would have to be met in order to take advantage of this option. In particular, it would only apply to developed land and land that was submitted for perpetual usufruct before 1998. And what's important, if the land is used for an economic activity, then de minimis state aid rules would apply. More precisely, in most cases, the sale price of the land used for running the business would amount to at least 60% of the land's current market value. Bearing in mind that perpetual usufructuaries have been paying the annual usufruct fee for many years, 25 at least, 60% of the market value is a lot. Such high level is related to previous legislative initiatives granting steep preferential discounts, which, however, were declared inconsistent with the European law by the European Commission and unconstitutional by the Polish Constitutional Court. To sum up, the Polish government's announcements that the bill, when enacted, will eliminate the perpetual usufruct right are exaggerated, to say at least. In fact, the new law will apply to a very few categories of land, and in most cases, buying this land outright will be pricey. With all these factors present, this bill, if adopted, would be important, but it nonetheless would still be nothing more than a single step in the process of elimination of perpetual usufruct right. In other words, before deciding to buy land held so far in perpetual usufruct, the usufructuary should first thoroughly assess the transaction from the legal and economic perspective.
Despite the economic slowdown and the war next door in Ukraine rambling on now for more than 1 year, the Polish commercial real estate market has bounced back quickly after the pandemic and continues to attract strong interest from investors. This is because it has more attractive rates of return than Western Europe. Sector reports show that in 2022 investors made deals worth 5.8 billion euros. This compares with 5.9 billion euros in 2021 and 7.8 billion in 2019, i.e. before the pandemic. Last year, a third of investors were from the United States and 22% from Western Europe. After a gap of 2 years, office investments are again in the lead. Last year, this sector accounted for 37% of investments. Investments in retail parks and PRS, private rented sector, are now regarded as the safest because they meet the basic needs of households in the form of food and housing. Thanks for watching this episode. See you soon.